one of their 6 mansions and condos, although I may have missed a few. How many of you know how many houses you have? Well, John McCain lost track of his, but I think they know. And by the way, it's not us who are entertained in those 6 houses and condos. We're not their constituents. It's the very wealthy and powerful with whom they consort. That is exactly the way that great wealth perpetuates itself and increases its own wealth, by entertaining in places like that. So I have a suggestion for the Richard C. Blum Center for the Study of Developing Economies. Study devolving economies like our own. Study poverty in this country. There's so much of it. Moreover, study how Blum became a billionaire since his wife became senator. And study her voting record very closely. Study whether the way that Blum has made his multiple millions has not contributed to poverty in this country by doing such things as charging tuition and raising your tuition so that you and your family will be bankrupted or in debt for years, paying interest on that tuition to Blum's financial institutions or those of his very wealthy associates on the Board of Regents and elsewhere, so that they can put their names on more of our buildings and our departments, because that's what they're doing. Mark Yudof has been crying crocodile tears about how much it hurts him to raise tuition and otherwise wreck one of the world's great universities. Well, if it hurts him so much, and if he has any honor, why doesn't he just quit? He can't run this place anyway anymore because he's completely lost our respect and our confidence in him. But he won't leave because he's doing precisely what he was brought here to do. It was Richard Blum, after all, who fired his predecessor and then who personally selected Yudof and gave him a salary twice as much as President Dines was making, and I suppose probably got him that $11,000 a year mansion that he lives in up in the Berkeley Hills, even though the university has a presidential mansion in Kensington. The Chronicle in June did an article on how Yudof was beefing up his public relations apparatus by hiring some very slick PR people at salaries of over $200,000, probably to handle this very crisis which they were anticipating at that time. One of the ways that they do that basically is they have the channel to get to the alums, and that's very important. That article quoted Regent Blum as saying that he and Mark disagree on almost nothing, and that if he had to grade Yudof, he'd give him an A+. What kind of grade would you give Mark Yudof? Yeah, put a minus after it. So Yudof is doing precisely what he was hired to do. He's the very well-paid lawyer whom you bring in to liquidate the old family firm and strip it of its assets so that what remains can be run more efficiently, more like a business that returns a higher rate of profit in the short term, because that's the only way that you think, the only way that you see the world. Okay, we're constantly told that there is no alternative. That's bullshit too. During the last Great Depression, Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal built thousands of schools and entire college campuses. It hired tens of thousands of teachers and research assistants. The National Youth Administration made sure that young men and women got through school by giving them work so that they didn't go to prison or commit suicide. We've been riding on that long-term investment for the last 75 years without knowing it. That's the model that we should be looking at to get us out of the economic washout that the neoliberal idiots drove us into. We should be hiring, not firing people. One qualification, except for those at the very top of the food chain who have demonstrated both their stupidity and their callousness. Mark Yudof, Richard Blum, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Meg Whitman, you're driving us straight into another Great Depression. Finally, I had to ask myself, how did Roosevelt manage to do so much for public education at such a terrible time in history when there was so much suffering, so much more even than now? The best answer I've been able to come up with is that what we did not have at that time was the military-industrial complex that President Eisenhower tried to warn us about. since he did, the military has grown to be the monster in the living room that nobody wants really to talk about, even as it has absorbed our universities and a complicit mass media as well. The military is now by far the largest item in the federal budget. It's shoving all other domestic expenditures against the wall and come clean out of the room. And it's been extraordinarily lucrative to generations of regents such as Richard Blum, who thinks that he's a Buddhist. This university has been an integral cog in that complex since at least the Manhattan Project, developing and actively promoting ever newer generations of superweapons with which to terrorize us all and to destroy life on planet Earth. Officially, we have 10 campuses. In fact, there are 12. If you go down to the university headquarters in Oakland, there are photographs of all of the campuses on the wall. It includes the 2 closed campuses at Livermore and Los Alamos. They're given equal footing with the other 10. That military-industrial complex, with all of its ongoing wars, is now breaking the back of California and the United States. That, combined with tax cuts and loopholes for the very wealthy, is why there is no longer any money for the social services that government once provided, not illegal immigrants. Until we can rein in that monster, we can all expect to go very deeper into debt in every way imaginable. That's your future unless you do something. So let's get out that microscope and start right now. And let's rebuild our public education system from kindergarten on up. This is an attack on all of us. We have to help the teachers. And finally, maybe he's in there. Mark Udall, go back to Texas. Rutgers University there. Leave this one alone. Thank you. Somebody said earlier that the Daily Californian editorialized, I guess a few days ago, that we shouldn't get personal. I completely disagree with that. It is absolutely necessary to bell the cat so that you know who's responsible and how the system really works to rip you guys off. You have to know who's making the money, your money. Okay? So I don't know whether there's any discussion time. There's going to be a great rally over there. Oh, great. Thank you. Come on up. Oh, you're welcome.
I was asked to lead kind of a, can you hear me now? No? So I was asked to lead kind of a workshop or discussion in between Professor Brechin's talk and the rally. So you guys, I was thinking what would be best to do right now is have a conversation, because there's so many people and I think there's like quite a diversity of perspectives here, to have a conversation about what we're going to do about all of this. How are we going to move forward? What's going to happen after the rally? So I have some ideas, but I really want this to be a dialogue with this whole group right here. So does anyone have any responses to the talk we just heard, or any other ideas? Maybe you attended some of the other teach-ins or information sessions this week. What do you guys think?
Like it's all bullshit?
Yeah.
Hello.
Go for it.
You moderate.
I think that when I attended Regent meetings, I noticed that they only have live feeds of the meeting and they don't have no documented video conference, so students can view it later. And I think that's ridiculous. That's one step. First is every meeting should be documented so students could observe it whenever and see not just the minutes that are kind of translated, but actually see exactly what is said, how the different responses, and see the faces of these regents, and not just like written descriptions of what is said.
Did you hear that?
The question, please.
He was saying that when you go to the Regents meeting, it's not videotaped